There you go. Number 1. So this is the chapter 22 quiz. Care only about, so these people, which group, care only about the money they're making and not about the sheep. Famous. D, the hirelings or the hired hands, the people that are getting paid to take care of the sheep. We have someone else. Yay, we have Sarah. Gonna move this stuff. Oh, hang on. Former military. Okay, number 2. Who recognizes and follows only their master's voice? Yes. D? Yes, D, or not D, C, the true sheep. C, the true sheep. Number 3, try to enter the sheepfold a way other than the door. B, thieves and robbers, which means the same thing. So I don't know why they did it. So D, C, B gives his life for the sheep. Yes. E, the good shepherd or the true shepherd. And then number 5, see their sin, if at all, only in contrast to the worst sins of others. And I didn't use that as a term for this, but obviously it's blind to sinners because that's the only one that's furthest left. I am tired. True, false, and just put an X in whichever one's correct. Number 6, as long as a person thinks that he or she is all right, he or she is all wrong. Yeah. What'd you say? Mm-hmm. True? Mm-hmm. It is true. You're exactly right. Use your words. I haven't said that since my kids were 3.
Terrifying more third graders.
Number 7. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I'm tired. A man must realize he is a sinner. So much must a woman, by the way. But I'm proud of them for the whole he and she thing on the other one. A person must realize that he or she is a sinner before he or she can become a saint. Here's what that's saying. That we have to recognize our sin before it can be dealt with. That's true. That's how I would put it. Number 8, all religions worship the same God, but they just call him by different names. Oh, very good. But a lot of people believe that. And a lot of people believe that they're all just different roads to God. And when we get to John 14, Jesus himself will debunk that. Number 9, Jesus gave his life only because he had temporarily lost control of the situation. False. Because he said, nobody takes my life from me. I lay it down. Jesus was not surprised by the cross. He was marching toward it. He knew what was going on. And then number 10, Christ not only predicted his own death, but also promised to take it back and did so. So to take back his own life, to rise again is what that's saying. True or false? True. And he said that beforehand. And that's really important because he could have, the disciples could have claimed that he did that and made up that story, although why would you make up a story that gets you in trouble, that gets you killed, right? But he told them beforehand that would happen, which really helped their faith, even though they were cowering at first, because they're like, wow, this would happen. Yeah, that is true. Okay, questions on this? File it away someplace good because you will be having a test at some point. Now, the next thing we're going to do, and we might do a chart on page 169, but we'll go back to that. Oops. That's fine. I got it. We'll go back to it. It just depends on how long this next part takes. So raise your hand if you were on a mission trip the last few days. Okay, so I know where some of you were. Were you all on the same mission trip? Were you in Des Moines?
You're talking about with Aiden or with Aiden?
Aiden?
Aiden.
Yes. Okay. So you guys were Urban Plunge in Des Moines. Okay. And the rest of you were at.
No, I was still in Des Moines.
Oh, you were in Des Moines. Okay. Who else was in Des Moines?
It was just.
So, and then the rest of us were in KC, right? KC. Okay, excellent. So both groups that are represented here were with Urban Plunge. So Urban Plunge is a Christian ministry that takes groups of people into the inner city. Did you stay in the inner city? Yeah, and as did we. And they minister, and you do all different kinds of ministry. You do hands-on ministry. You do ministry, talking to people and telling them about Jesus, and just all different kinds of things that are done. And we'll talk about a few of those. But to give people a sense of, raise an awareness of, and a heart for the inner city. And so you guys were in Des Moines, we were in Kansas City. Oftentimes we stayed in Kansas City, Kansas, which is a very urban core. So let's do this first. What are some of the things that you did? And I'm doing this so that people who weren't on any trip can hear it, but also so KC can hear what Des Moines did and Des Moines can hear what KC did. Yes?
We went to this place called the Healing House. It was like a rehab, like post-rehab place for like recovered addicts and like housing, and like learn, like teach them how to like work certain jobs and things like that, and kind of like set their life back on track. And it was really cool because we heard the testimony of the founder, and she has like a book and documentary about her life. Really crazy just to hear, but like all the work that they do is like, because they have like 15-ish like houses that they bought like on the same like not expensive.
I told the kids I think that's my favorite place I've ever visited on a Christian mission trip. It was amazing. And I'm planning to buy that movie and show it for all of my classes. For you guys, obviously, you've seen it a second time, but I think it's worth seeing. Yeah, Donald. Yeah, and so not only are they taking these homeless families and helping those parents, giving them education, giving them counseling and that sort of thing, and a job and all of that, so that they can. It's transitional housing. It's not a forever home, but so that they can have a forever home and have a family. But they're not just doing that. They're taking this inner city core of run down apartments where vagrants, have taken up shelter and just live there in the winter, trying to keep warm. And anyone who is there can testify to the fact that I cleaned the grodiest toilet I've ever seen, and my only goal was to get it clean enough that I would at least consider using it. and I got there, but it took a long time to get it there. So we were cleaning, we were painting, we were getting those apartments ready for people, and it doesn't just represent work; it represents the life change of the families that will be living in those apartments. So that was really special. Someone from yeah.
One of the places we went was so there's a center called Freedom for Youth Center in Des Moines, Iowa, and so what they do is it's an after school program. Most of the time for the kids that are like in elementary through high school, and so it's where they can go and actually like do stuff that will help them like grow in the future, because if they can't afford to go to college, or they can't afford to learn a trade, they teach them a trade.
Mhm.
And so like they can do art, they can do like a bunch of different like HVAC, construction, and a bunch of different things like that. So they have a giant center where they can learn those things and learn trades, so they can learn to support their families. And a lot of them don't like they don't even have supplies to do things that are like fun that like we could easily do, and so they like give them like chances to do all those things. And so they go to their schools. They go to their schools in their vans they have and pick them up from school,
Mhm.
then take them there, and then they take them home. And so that was really cool. But I found out that that center doesn't have any government funding, so all of the money they have to do that for those kids is either given by churches or given by like individuals paying for the stuff to help the kids. And then they also have this program that's like 18 to 25-year-olds, I think is about what it is. And so that's also teaching them like the HVAC, construction, plumbing, and a bunch of different things like that. And all of like the stuff they use are like given to them because they don't have government funding or any other things that like fund any of the work they do. And so that was really cool to see of like they're reaching out to the kids that like can't afford to do things that are fun, but then also can't afford to learn trades because they don't have enough money or have the opportunity to learn those things.
And so what did you do for them?
So we like learned about that, but then we also we started like helping with their office and start like cleaning the buses and cleaning a bunch of things so they could because they have it on Monday, so today. So they had stuff on Monday, but they could get shut down or like billed really high for like because of all the ice. And so because if it's slippery, they could get billed like a lot of money for that, or possibly get shut down because it's unsafe for children. And so we cracked a bunch of ice. Um, did a bunch of like filing and moving things for them, and then clean vans, so they're like good for the kids to be able to go in, and then we cleaned the art building and like moved a bunch of stuff I think around in there so that they could use it.
Great. Anybody else? What you guys did?
Yeah, we went to this place called Heart to Heart International, and they send like hygiene kits like all over the world. And we saw their warehouse. It was huge, and they have each country's like flag, and then like all of these shelves of like things to send them. And we made 900 kits for people. Like we packaged them, and then we like put more together, and like boxed them all up, and that was cool just to do. And then they just added like they now are sending to all over like it's for like they do disaster relief, but also just in general send them to places.
And we had 2 ships. We were split into 2, and so each ship made 900, right? So as a total, there were 1,800 hygiene kits that will go to some disaster area, maybe in Tunisia, for people to have a toothbrush and a toothpaste and soap and a washcloth and things like that. It's really, it was neat. Oh, did in Des Moines, did you interact with homeless people?
I don't think.
No, you can wonder.
Oh yeah, yeah,
There's
yeah.
a few boys, but not all.
So there was I think there was 4, and Kelby, Noah. I don't know, but there was like 4 guys that were on our thing that helped with the mobile drive at New City Life Dream Center, in Des Moines, and so they were changing clothes and like bringing clothes from inside that are like clean for families to use, and like they have this van that has a bunch of clothes in there so people can go in and like have clothes that are actually clean and actually like usable. And so we like one of our groups, half of us sorted it, half of us was helping with this like all of their food. We found out like people are always like donating food to places and being like, oh, that helps. But if they have no volunteers to sort that food, a lot of that food goes to waste. And so we were like, a lot of people were like cleaning the kitchen and like taking food out that had spoiled because didn't have enough volunteers to actually like organize the food and like figure out what was expired, what was close to expiring. And so a lot of that food, I think at least like 100 pounds of that food had to be thrown away because it was out of date because they had no volunteers to like organize it. And so one of us helped with like me, Natalie, and a couple other people were sorting laundry and like sorting clothes and like what is usable and what's not usable and what they're gonna send to like other places that could still be usable there. And then a lot of people were helping with that, but there was so much spoiled food that one of our people threw up because when they threw it into the dumpster, it like exploded because it was so bad, and it was just like really sad to see like people we're always like donating food or like doing that, so we think we're helping, but also because if we don't volunteer, like if people don't volunteer,
Right.
all of that's gonna go to waste.
Yeah, and it's interesting because you might not think that like sorting food or making hygiene kits, what does this have to do with the gospel? But it has everything to do with the gospel, right? If they don't have people to do that, they can't minister. So, yeah, it has everything to do with that. So here's the next question, and anyone who is on a trip is welcome to answer. What for you? I don't know the best way to put this, but so either like what had the greatest impact on you, or what is for me it's this question: what is your most enduring memory or moment that like is seared into your brain from the trip?
That were on the streets and stuff like that. It was because like you can hear and talk about it, and just like whenever they like you actually face to face them and they're talking to you about like what's happening in their life and stuff like that, and like this is real and stuff like that. And then another thing is wait, what was the second question?
Well, either or, but you can do both. So, what was your favorite thing, or the most thing that impacted you the most?
So we went to this place called Avenue of Life, and there is these people that were just eating there. It was Avenue of Life, and like just gives people food. So when we went there, we helped like clean up and all that stuff, and organize food and organize the closet and stuff like that. But there is this we were able to listen to these two people that were having like a regular conversation while they're cleaning up and stuff like that. One of the guys was saying that some people are just so cold and so like yeah, it was so cold that they will set the house on fire just so they have some sort of warmth. And there, he was saying that there has been so many house fires and just so many people that are struggling with like mental illness and stuff like that because of all these things. And he was saying that he like just lives in a van and at the church. And, it was just weird. Not weird, like it just it was hard to see that we have everything, but we always want to like hold on to our own stuff and not like try to help out or give to people. So I think that was one of the biggest things.
I don't know why this reminded me of that, but I'm going to say it. My grandfather, my he's my namesake. I'm his namesake. He's Lane Allen Dutton. I'm Amy Lane. He was a judge. He was a lawyer and a judge. And when he would get someone in front of him for like vagrancy or public drunkenness, something like that, so something like the people that we ministered to, maybe not in that dire straits, he would sentence them to part of their sentence, maybe all of their sentence, was to go to church. You could do this back in the early 1900s, I guess, but um, and and they had to bring him the bulletin from the church so that they knew and I love that. And my grandmother always heard from her, snippy friends like, "Well, I see we have one of Lane's vagrants with us today." But I love that my grandfather, even probably 100 years ago, was trying to do life change, trying to help these men primarily with life change, like the church and the gospel. So I thought that was pretty cool. So yeah, what else? So and enduring like sort of picture or your favorite part of what you do. Yeah.
Well, same scenario like talking to people, but just to like kind of like remind me like all this is a lot of different things, and it's not just like someone like saying help, but like some of the people we talk to, like they had jobs, but that doesn't always like fix the problem because once you can't just work and then not spend that money and then like have a house or a car. And just to like talk with them, I think at first like they knew that we were like kind of really uneasy. And well, because it was like I didn't want to say the wrong thing, like oh that's like offensive or something like that. But just to like be able to talk to them and like just have a conversation that like 'cause I don't know those people probably don't receive a lot of like kindness from others and I just would pray for them. They were struggling with them to be able to like offer them with something, though it wasn't.
And we did. We gave them hygiene kits as well, different hygiene kits. Yeah, and then a card inviting them to church the next. Anybody else that was in Des Moines that was meaningful to them? Yeah.
So one of the things we were gonna do got canceled, and so we went to Freedom for Youth, but so it wasn't the same day, so it was a different day. But so we made like food for the kids that were gonna be there, so that like they could eat the next day. And then, but we had like 3 stations. We had one where we were making gospel tracks, so like telling our story on a piece of paper, so we could give that out to someone, like encourage them to see like it's been working in someone else's life, whose life isn't perfect. And then also one of our stations where we were washing each other's feet, which was kind of like a little weird at first, but then so a lot of people like felt really uncomfortable, and so it was like a really big humility moment of like washing each other's feet, because if we're gonna be more like Jesus, we need to humble ourselves in front of people, and so we washed each other's feet, which was freaked some people out, but it was like a really like meaningful time of like not lowering yourself, but realizing where you are and realizing that you're on the same level as everyone else. So you're not better than any other people. They'll both have nasty feet. So that was really cool.
You'll get this when we get to the end of John, toward the end of John. But the washing of feet in ancient times, first of all, they had nasty feet, right? They're wearing sandals in a very dusty, muddy, men's feet. I'm sorry, guys, but men's feet are way nastier than women's feet. And that is the only. It's like in ancient Israel, the washing of another's feet was so demeaning that even a Jewish slave couldn't do it. Like Jewish slaves were not allowed to wash their master's feet because it was so demeaning. It was only Gentile slaves. And that kind of puts Jesus washing the feet of his disciples in perspective. But even more so, that is the only place in all of ancient literature that depicts a superior washing the feet of men. It was literally unheard of. It would have been shocking. And that makes Peter's response like, there's no way you're going to wash my feet, right? It puts that even in more perspective. We'll talk about that again when we get there. But it's a beautiful way of humbling yourself and then honoring that other person. Anything else from either Des Moines or Kansas? You got something? No. You're just talking.
Well, okay. No, I don't want to ask a question. I'll let Janora ask.
You'll ask me a question later? Okay, that's fine. Yeah. Yeah, what's mine? Mine is, okay, a picture. And I have an actual picture that but I won't show you that. But when we were preparing to go out and talk to the homeless, which I've done before, and even I was like, okay, how's this going to turn out, right? And I was looking at a group of 17 teenagers who were internally freaking out and trying to cover it up, right? Am I right? Like inside they're like, they're all looking around like this. And so I started praying right then. And then we get there, and God blesses us with a woman named Aretha. And she had a whole story that probably was not true about how many nonprofits she had started and all this stuff. And she was obviously homeless. But she was larger than life, and she was beautiful. And so Nicole, our leader, was engaging her in conversation. And so I walked up and I put a hand on her and began engaging her in conversation. And then I said, "Can I pray for you?" And what happened next blew my mind. Like, I prayed for her, and I thought it was a fairly generic prayer, right, for some woman I've just met. But then she starts praying, and she's praying this prayer like she has a direct line to Jesus, right? And it was just beautiful. And we're surrounded by these kids, and I believe God gave us that picture, right, so that the kids would be like, "Oh, this isn't so scary. If they're all like Retha, it's like, come on with us, Retha. We got room in the van, right?" And so then I watched it as my students, because every one of them was my student, go engage with homeless people up and down Truce Avenue. And Truce Avenue was the red line. On this side, the blacks lived on this side, the whites lived on this side, and it was illegal for the blacks to cross that line. And there are still homes in that neighborhood that if a black person tries to buy it, they have to change the entire deed, because the deed still says no black person will ever own this home. Because that is what it is. So here we are on Troost Avenue, right? And a largely white group. And they're white homeless people, and they're black homeless people, and my students are engaging with them. And I was one of my probably the proudest moments I've had as a teacher, because I knew it was scary to them. It was scary to me, but they did it anyway, and they blessed those men and women that they spoke to. So well done. And that, to me, that's going to be my most enduring moment. And the picture, the actual picture, is of a student sitting on the ground. It's the reason we do this. The reason we go on mission trips. And it's not just because we're a Christian school. And I don't know of any other Christian school that actually requires the mission trip. But it is to get you out of your comfort zone and be the hands and feet of Jesus to others, so that you recognize what that looks like. And you have the opportunity to do that, so that as you grow up and become mothers and fathers and grandmothers and grandfathers, that will be where your heart beats to do work. My husband is an introvert, and he isn't going to go out on the street and start preaching to people. But every Thursday, which is most of his day off, he faithfully goes to the website, goes to the Open Door Mission website, sees what they need that week, goes to the store, buys it, drives down to Open Door Mission, and he's serving the least in a very Jeff Keyser way. And so that's the heart we're wanting. As your disciplers, right? This is a discipleship school where we teach you, but the most important thing that we do as teachers of Christian is disciple students. And these trips give us such a wonderful opportunity, since we're living together and we're together, 24/7, to do that even more than we can do. So I'm excited to hear the stories from El Salvador and from Minnesota, and looking forward to wherever we're going next year. We are not going to do that table, and I was hoping we wouldn't have to. I was hoping that we would all engage, so thank you for doing that. And we're done for today.